Emmerdale spoilers for Friday, the 25th of July tease that under the twinkling lights hanging from the arbor behind the woolpack, a buzz of excitement ripples through the guests as Sarah and Jacob's engagement is made official. Sarah, eyes alight with hope and gratitude, touches the delicate ring Jacob has pressed onto her palm, an heirloom from her late mother, its tiny diamonds reflecting the light of the lanterns. Just weeks ago, Sarah had thought her only path to motherhood was through endless fertility treatments. Now, with Charity as her surrogate, she believes their dream is within reach. But whether the wedding will go smoothly after that, well, nothing on the farm goes according to plan. The first stirrings of discord are beginning to emerge. Charity, feeling the first flutter of life in her belly, burst into Sarah's apartment, her voice filled with excitement. "I felt her move, Sarah. Today." Yet as she shared the news, Mackenzie lingered in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "What's wrong?" Charity asked, blinking at his silence. Mackenzie cleared his throat. I didn't expect to feel so left out." Charity frowned. "Left out? I'm carrying their baby, Mac." "I know that," he said quietly. "But you're both so focused on Sarah and Jacob. I worry we've forgotten why we agreed to this in the first place." Charity's eyes hardened. "We agreed because Sarah can't carry. Don't act like my body isn't paying the price." Mackenzie pressed a hand to his temple. "I'm just worried. Your health, your stress levels, it's a lot to juggle." Their argument, hushed but charged, drifted into Sarah's flat next door. Sarah, standing at the kitchen bench, paused as she heard Charity's voice thicken with frustration. She hesitated. Should she intervene, or let her friends work it out? Meanwhile, Jacob was busy transforming the woolpack's back garden into a makeshift ceremony space. Old barrels of ale became cocktail tables, bunting fluttered from the hedges. A trestle table stood primed to host homemade canapés and Sarah's favorite elderflower punch. As he hammered in a final stake, he heard the front door open behind him. "Hey," Sarah said, slipping her hand into his. "Eric came by earlier. He thinks this whole thing is a mistake." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Eric is just worried about you." "But I'm not his daughter," Sarah shot back, bristling. "I'm an adult, engaged to be married, having a baby, building a life. He doesn't get to rain on our parade." Jacob drew her close. "I'll handle him. Now, look at this." He pointed to the ramshackle arch he'd decorated with roses and wildflowers. "It's perfect, isn't it?" Sarah smiled through her anxiety. "It is. And you're perfect." They kissed beneath the setting sun, unaware that Eric, having followed them quietly, watched from the doorway. His lips pressed into a thin line. On the eve of the registry wedding, Charity and Mackenzie's quarrel escalated. Charity, exhausted from morning sickness and late-night surrogacy classes, snapped at Mac when he questioned her meal choices. "Really, kale smoothies again?" Mackenzie accused her of overstepping boundaries when she tried to rearrange Sarah's guest list to ensure her own sister could attend. Voices rose, heartbreak twinkling in their eyes as each misinterpreted the other's concern as coldness. Sarah, overhearing the shouting through the thin walls, felt panic surge. The last thing she needed was friction between her closest allies, especially so close to her big day. She flung open the door to the flat. "Enough," she cried. Charity and Mac froze, surprise flashing across their faces. "Charity, Mac," Sarah said, voice trembling, "you two are like family to me. We can't let this wedding, or my surrogacy, tear us apart." Charity's shoulders sagged, and Mackenzie's glare softened. They exchanged a guilty glance. Without another word, Charity closed the door and fled down the corridor, tears pricking her lashes. Mackenzie followed, his own eyes glistening. Family tensions came to a head when Eric confronted Jacob in the woolpack. Under the low beams, Eric planted himself behind the bar, arms crossed. "You're really going to marry her, and give her your mother's ring, when she's pregnant by someone else," he said, voice cold. Jacob set down the polishing cloth he'd been using. "It's my mother's ring, because she loved Sarah. And yes, I'm proud to marry her." Eric's face reddened. "She's playing house. You'll be a cuckold on your wedding day." Jacob stepped forward, control radiating from his posture. "My father, you forget, did the same. He and Mum had an open marriage. Love isn't a straight line, Eric. Sarah and I both love this baby, and each other, and we won't let your prejudice tear us apart." Eric's jaw dropped. For once, Jacob's quiet strength left him speechless. Wedding morning arrived damp and grey, but spirits stayed high. Sarah slipped into her gown, a simple ivory sheath, and studied herself in the mirror. Jacob stood beside her, suit immaculate, eyes bright. When they emerged arm in arm, laughter and applause rose from the small crowd of friends and family, Charity and Mackenzie included, now reconciled and arm in arm themselves. At the registry office, they exchanged vows that wove together gratitude for the gift of new life, the promise of unwavering support, and the pledge to navigate whatever storms lay ahead. Sarah's voice quavered as she vowed to honor Jacob's gesture of love, his mother's ring, and to protect their growing family from harm. Jacob, handing her the ring with a gentle smile, spoke of commitment deeper than biology. "I choose you," he said, voice hushed but firm, "and the life we will build together." When they kissed, a ripple of joyous cheering filled the room. Yet just as they stepped back, the door burst open. In strode Eric, face ashen. The registrar paused mid-applause. All eyes turned to Eric as he limped forward, hand clenching a small card. I'm sorry," he began, voice cracking. "I was wrong. Sarah, I see now how brave you've been, for this baby and for your marriage. I want to give you my blessing." He handed her the card, a handwritten promise to act as an honorary godfather to their baby, to stand by them through thick and thin. Tears pooled in Sarah's eyes as she folded him into an embrace. Later, on the terrace behind the woolpack, laughter echoed. Charity approached Sarah, her hand resting lightly on her own growing belly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for stopping Mac and me from breaking everything." Sarah patted Charity's hand. "We're in this together. Always." Mackenzie raised his pint. "To family, by blood or by choice." Jacob added his own, "To love, in all its forms." Glasses clinked. The storm clouds overhead parted just enough for a shaft of afternoon sunlight to warm their faces. For one brilliant moment, it seemed that nothing could go awry. But under the surface, the seeds of future turmoil had already been sown, disagreements over parenting roles, Eric's lingering doubts, and the reality of raising a child born of complex circumstances. On the cobbles of Emmerdale, tomorrow would bring fresh challenges, and the strength of their bonds would be tested once more. Yet as they raised their glasses, one thing was certain: Sarah and Jacob, flanked by Charity, Mackenzie, and even Eric, would face whatever came next, together. Under the soft haze of early autumn sunlight, life on the farm settled into its new rhythms. Sarah and Jacob newly married, Charity well into the second trimester, Mackenzie by her side through its tribulations, and Eric wrestling with the evolving definition of family. Yet beneath this veneer of contentment, tensions and uncertainties quietly gathered like storm clouds over the rolling hills of Emmerdale. The first shock came one crisp morning when Charity awoke to find her normally gentle baby bump drawn tight with cramping. She swallowed her panic as Jacob, summoned by Sarah's urgent call, swept into her cottage. His eyes were pools of concern. "Char, talk to me," he urged, guiding her to the armchair. Charity shook her head, tears welling. I've never felt pains like this. What if something's wrong with the baby? Jacob's hand clasped hers. Let's get you to the midwife. By midday, at the local clinic, the midwife's calm reassurance that Braxton Hicks contractions were common at this stage offered only partial relief. Charity's relief mixed with lingering fear. She loved this child fiercely, but the reality of carrying another couple's future so literally in her body weighed on her more heavily than ever before. Mackenzie, pacing the corridor outside, felt that weight too, his worry for Charity bleeding into resentment toward the entire arrangement. When they returned home, word of Charity's scare reached Sarah, just as she was finishing a homemade quiche for lunch. She embraced Mackenzie fiercely. Thank you for being there for her, she said, voice thick. Mackenzie shrugged off the praise. She's my friend. But I want you to know, sometimes it feels like I'm the odd one out. Sarah's eyes softened. You're not. We wouldn't be doing this without you. Yet in that moment, both understood that gratitude alone was not enough to lubricate the tensions that arose when personal sacrifice collided with collective joy. As Charity's pregnancy advanced, her relationship with Mackenzie fractured further. She threw herself into nursery decor plans, scrolled through Pinterest boards, selected pastel blankets, and consulted with the vicarage's craft group on hand-stitched mobile designs. While Mackenzie found himself excluded from these feminine, motherly circles. He tried to help, volunteering to assemble cribs, but Charity snapped at him, believing he was overstepping into decisions she viewed as intimately hers. One evening, after yet another brusque exchange over the crib's placement, Mackenzie left Charity's cottage in a storm of anger and self-doubt. He stumbled toward the woolpack, where Eric nursed a pint by the fireside. I'm driving her crazy, he confessed, voice raw. I thought being the supportive friend meant always being there. Now she looks at me like I'm a stranger in my own home. Eric, still awkward in his role as reluctant sponsor of this unconventional family, hesitated before replying. She's always put her needs before others. Here, she's suddenly responsible for someone else's child. Maybe she's frightened. Mackenzie frowned. And what about me? Eric sighed. You're her anchor. Don't let her storm push you away. Mackenzie blinked, absorbing the truth. Charity needed him, but on her own uncertain terms. He resolved to stay by her side, no matter the misunderstandings, because the bond between them, and to the child they were helping bring into the world, was stronger than any miscommunication. Meanwhile, Sarah and Jacob navigated their own challenges. The registry wedding's euphoria gave way to the slow creep of everyday pressures. The dream home they'd hoped to share felt perpetually under renovation. Fieldwork ate into evenings they'd planned to spend reminiscing or simply holding hands on the sofa. And the omnipresence of surrogacy complications, medical appointments, moral quandaries, and the need for legal fine print took its strain on even their most intimate moments. One Friday night, Jacob returned home late from overseeing lambing in the adjacent paddock, only to find Sarah restless and distant. Talk to me, he pleaded as she traced circles on the kitchen table. Sarah looked up, her smile tight. I worry. You love that baby she's carrying. And you love me. But will those loves ever compete? What if I start to feel like an outsider to my own child's life? Jacob's heart clenched. He slid onto the chair beside her. Sarah, I chose you when I chose to have a baby with you. Charity is a vessel, nothing more. You are our family's heart. I promise you, I will never give more of myself to anyone else than I give to you. Sarah exhaled, tears of relief mingling with residual fear. Thank you, she whispered. But even as they embraced, both knew that surrogacy, not to mention Eric's lingering disapproval, would demand more than promises alone. Eric, pushed to the margins of their new family dynamic, found his protective instincts flaring once more when Charity experienced a bout of severe morning sickness that left her bedridden for days. He arrived unannounced at her cottage with shopping bags full of herbal teas, ginger biscuits, and a flask of homemade chicken soup. Charity, propped up by pillows, looked startled but grateful. "I didn't want to bother you," she said, voice shaky. Eric set the groceries on the table. "You're carrying a life. I won't let you face this alone." Charity's eyes brimmed. "Thank you, really." She paused, gathering courage. "I know I've been distant. And I'm sorry I made you feel excluded." Eric gave her a small smile. "We're family, in the way family chooses each other. We'll get through this." In that moment, a fragile bridge spanned the gulf between Eric's skepticism and Charity's sense of ownership over another's child. Both realized that, if they were to build a solid foundation for the baby yet to come, they would need to set aside pride in favor of collective care. As winter's frost edged the dales, the surrogate journey reached its crescendo. With the due date looming, Charity was admitted to the hospital for monitoring. Sarah and Jacob, accompanied by Mackenzie and Eric, took turns holding vigil in the softly lit waiting room. Conversations were hushed, punctuated by nervous laughter and the crinkle of hospital gowns. When the first cries pierced the air, Sarah burst from the delivery suite, tears streaming, to find Charity pale but triumphant, cradling a tiny, red-capped bundle, their daughter, whom they would name Florence Floss May Silver. Jacob pressed a kiss to Charity's forehead. Tears of gratitude shone in his eyes. Mackenzie and Eric hovered close, marveling at the child whose existence had once seemed such a complicated dream. Sarah strode forward, arms trembling, as Florence was swaddled and handed to her. She gazed at her daughter's perfect, puckered face, lungs working bravely against the chill of the world. Then she looked at Jacob, at the beaming surrogate mother, at the two men who had become family, and she realized the journey had demanded more than medical procedures or legal waivers. It had required every ounce of compassion, forgiveness, and steadfastness they could summon. In the weeks that followed, as Sarah and Jacob settled into parenthood, new dramas unfurled. Floss's arrival intensified dynamics among the group. Sarah found herself torn between wanting to protect Floss from the world's cruelties and resenting the intrusion of well-meaning friends offering unsolicited parenting advice. Jacob struggled to balance his duties at home with the demands of farm life. He often felt he was letting someone down. Charity, discharged from the hospital, but still recovering physically, faced legal hurdles in her post-surrogacy status, questions about parental rights, caregiving allowances, and the lingering emotional aftermath of surrendering the child she had carried. Mackenzie, sidelined after he injured his shoulder helping with feed deliveries, battled feelings of uselessness, even as he buoyed his friends with his steadfast support. Eric, newly appointed godfather, grappled with ceremonies and packages, planning a christening, sourcing silver spoons, but also with a dawning sense that this unconventional family might just outlast the most traditional marriages on the village map. The Woolpack, usually a refuge from farm stresses, became a forum for both celebration and conflict. One evening, a week after Floss's homecoming, Charity perched on a bar stool beside Sarah as they sipped peppermint tea. Jacob had stepped outside to check on the ewe lambs, Mackenzie was following up on physio exercises, and Eric had gone to fetch a bottle of champagne for the christening party. Charity's hand drifted to Sarah's arm. "How are you really doing?" she asked quietly. Sarah stared into her cup. Seeing the steam curl like questions, she wasn't sure she was ready to answer. "I'm overwhelmed, and grateful, and terrified, and in love." She exhaled. "Honestly, I don't know if I could have done this without you." Charity gave her a sad smile. "You did do it. And you will keep doing it. But I'm here, for as long as you need." Before Sarah could respond, the door opened and Mackenzie hobbled in, sporting a protective brace. He granted Sarah's quilted gaze a shy smile. "Hey," he said softly. "I've got good news. The physio says I can start back with light farm work next week." Sarah's face brightened. "That's brilliant." Mackenzie sat on the stool beside Charity. "Also, I spoke to the community center manager. They need a workshop leader for their new parenting classes. Thought it might suit someone who's been through, unconventional routes." He glanced at Charity. "You interested?" Charity's eyes widened. Yeah. That could be good." As the three friends toasted to new opportunities, Eric returned, bearing a tray with champagne flutes. He paused at the sight, then slipped into the circle, raising his glass. "To Florence, proof that family is what we make it." Their glasses chimed in unison, but beneath the joy lay new uncertainties. How would parenthood reshape Sarah and Jacob's marriage? Could Charity find purpose beyond surrogacy without feeling adrift? Would Mackenzie recover fully, or would the reminder of physical vulnerability haunt him? And could Eric, once the lone skeptic, truly embrace a role that defied his own preconceived notions of fatherhood and family? Furthermore, whispers began circulating in the village. Some wondered whether Floss might someday seek a relationship with her birth mother. Others feared that Charity's legal status might be challenged if Mackenzie, or Charity herself, experienced buyer's remorse. Though unlikely, these murmurs cast a subtle shadow over the group's newfound stability. As winter's first snowflakes fluttered in the dusk, Sarah and Jacob faced their greatest test yet. Floss contracted a cold that lingered into flu-like symptoms. Sleepless nights in the spare room became their new norm. Sarah, exhausted and guilt-ridden, feared that she was failing her daughter. Jacob, torn between late-night bottle sterilizing and early-morning feed rounds, nearly collapsed from fatigue. At dawn one morning, Jacob found Sarah asleep on the floor beside Floss's crib, her tears drying on the carpet. He knelt, lifting her into his arms. "We can't do this alone," he murmured. Sarah looked up, red-eyed. "Should we ask for help?" Jacob nodded. "We have a village full of family." They rose and, hand in hand, ventured out into the snowy street, first to Charity's cottage, then to the Woolpack, then to Eric's, enlisting help for night feeds, warm meals, and the simple comfort of shared presence. Each offered strength and respite, while also reminding Sarah and Jacob that the path they had chosen, though unconventional, had forged bonds more resilient than biology or tradition alone. In that flurry of shared care, laughter through tears, and unexpected acts of kindness, Sarah realized that the marriage she and Jacob had entered with hopeful vows now faced its truest crucible. Yet with each dish washed by Charity, each tray of soup delivered by Eric, each soothing word from Mackenzie, she felt the promise they had made to one another, "I choose you," always grow more tangible, more unbreakable. And so, as snow blanketed the dales in shimmering white, life on Emmerdale moved onward, a tapestry of joy and struggle, love and sacrifice, reminding every resident that family, by blood, by choice, by shared hardship and triumph, was the strongest legacy anyone could build. No storm, no misgiving, no whispered doubt could extinguish the light that shone from within a home bound by devotion as deep and winding as the river that carved the valley itself.